Good morning across Australia and welcome to a look at the realistically achievable content creation framework. I'm Dante St James. We're taking you through this today. I'll just quickly give you a look at me. Hey, how you doing? It's Friday. It's a great time to be alive. What we're going to do is before I head off on holidays tonight, just a little bit of a humble brag there, we're going to be looking at, what this whole content creation thing is and how, if there is a possibility for you to make this as simple as possible, or at least to chunk it down into small pieces, to make it achievable for you. Because honestly, all the stuff that's coming out from all the gurus right now just seems to be utterly unachievable. It's not made for real people who are living in real jobs, living in real lives, having real families and real businesses. So let's try and make this as simple as we possibly can. My apologies for the volume today and the microphone quality. I did leave my microphone at home before I came to the office. Unfortunately, I don't have my best gear with me, but I think we'll be able to cope. Now, the Q&A and the chat window are both open, so please, if you do have questions along the way, do not be shy about putting those in. I'm more than happy to answer those questions as we go along. So first of all, this is brought to you by Business Station and the Digital Solutions Program, a project of the Australian government ending at the end of March. So sadly, that's the end of it, but it's not really sad. The program does come back again. In which shape or form or who's going to be carrying it out, we still don't know yet. It's getting to the end of February. We need to know very shortly, so hopefully we'll have that news for you very shortly as well. This particular session will be recorded and sent to you if you've registered through the Business Station portal and Eventbrite. If not, well, you can get hold of it through YouTube at the Business Station channel or at my own channel eventually. I'm a bit slow on getting mine up there, but I'll get it on there as soon as possible for you as well. Please do check it out. And if you're on YouTube now watching this, please just leave the messages down in the comments and we'll come back to you as soon as we can with those. But for those of you live on the Zoom call, hey, you've got access to me right here, right now, as Maria's just done by sending a message in there. Good morning to you, Maria, as well, and to everyone else who's online this morning. So my background is, well, not just as a big digital solutions advisor and presenter, but also with Workforce Australia's entrepreneurship facilitation program, which means I help small businesses to get started, a bit of a concierge through the navigating through the path of small business ownership. I'm a lead trainer with Meta Australia and New Zealand, which is the Facebook company, and working as also the license holder of the LinkedIn local chapter in Darwin and Northern Territory. My own business, Clickstarter, is a digital marketing agency with quite a lot of clients now that I'm actually looking like I need to hire people. Hiring people in this country, I don't recommend it. It's really hard to find people. I'm also work in the area of crowdfunding for small businesses and new businesses that are looking to scale up through a program called Swarmer, and also through Google's Digital Springboard program as well. So next up, what we're going to be looking at is how to focus in on one or two subject areas. The styles of writing that keep your content fresh so you're not getting all repetitive, and looking also at how to maintain your brand focus in graphics. Then we'll look at how to infuse your posts with your values. That's an important part of it that most of us ignore. And then how to break this process into chunks that are workable and sustainable for you as a small business owner. Because let's face it, the big ideas from people like Gary Vaynerchuk, they're not achievable by the little guys like us. So let's start off. We're going to look at focusing on just one or two things. Now, when you're a bit like me, you're a bit of a polyglot, you're all over the place, and you're always you've got fingers in lots and lots of pies, and you can do a lot of things. Well, it's hard to focus that in. This is my little, a representation of all the stuff I know, and there's probably another 2 pages that to go as well. That's a lot of stuff to be focused on. Like, yeah, sure, I love talking about ChatGPT and radio and television advertising and online education platforms and office systems and cybersecurity and newsletters and CRMs and YouTube and podcasting. They're all great opportunities to talk about. The problem is, though, that when you're that focused, that sort of scattered all over the place, not only do you become like a jack of all trades, but you're also seen as a master of none. Even if you have mastered all those things, you're generally seen as a master of none of them. So what I personally did is I focused down on those 2 areas shown on the screen, social media and personal branding. Sure, I know about the other things, but if I'm going to talk about podcasting, it has to be within the realms of either social media or personal branding. And in that case, it becomes under the subject of personal branding. Or if I'm talking about newsletters, then what am I talking about newsletters within the context of? In this case as well, it'll be personal branding. So just narrowing down to those things makes life so much easier. The very best people on LinkedIn and YouTube and Facebook and Instagram aren't talking about everything. They're just talking about one thing, usually just one thing, over and over and over again, showing their expertise, their depth of their knowledge in that particular topic. Or they've got a couple of things that are closely related. In my case, social media, personal branding, kind of a hand in hand, particularly in the realm of the sole trader or the solopreneur or the very small business, where you are the business. It's not like you can relegate that off to a general manager that you've employed. You are the general manager, the chief cook and bottle washer. You carry all those things in your business. So then, how did I get there? Choosing those two things specifically. Well, the first one being social media. I put a poll out on LinkedIn where most of my following is, and I asked them, what are these things out of these 15 things that are listed in a poll? What of those things do you know me most for? And the one that came back with 217 responses, well and truly far beyond any other response, was social media. And hardly surprising. It's what I'm acting on all the time. It's what I'm the most certified at. It's certainly what I'm able to, the work I do with Meta is tied in with social media as well. So that was a no-brainer. Even though it wasn't necessarily the subject I wanted to really talk about the most, it had lots of other shiny objects I wanted to go into. But that was the one that the crowd said that they know me for. So it's a no-brainer. I have to talk about that. So I got used to that and went, yeah, I can do this. The second part was personal branding, and that was based upon that being the most asked for thing in private messages and email inquiries over the previous 3 months. When it came to one-to-one consultations, when it came to inquiries on YouTube, views of my YouTube videos, views of my different posts on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, and also from the requests for workshops. That personal brand thing, or other variations of what people might not even think of as being personal branding, that's the area that came through the most. So between the two of them, I went, well, they're fairly closely related because personal brands usually carried out on social media. So, that's kind of like the one big overarching topic, but I'll split it into two specialties. I think I can handle that. And why we do this is because when you've got lots of little sparkly objects all over the place, you need to limit the areas you post to, because it makes it so much simpler to focus in that one or two things that you're an expert in. And it makes so much more sense for credibility as well, because like that old saying says, you can be a jack of all trades and a master of none. But what it means is that why would I follow and be influenced by and want to do more deep work with someone who's a jack of all trades? Unless, they're a handyman and I wanted to do lots of things around my house. That's the one time when you might need a jack of all trades. But if I'm really trying to increase my social media following, if I'm trying to convert more customers on my website, if I'm trying to, build a website that has impact and really helps people out, I'm not going to do that by speaking about 30 different topics of shiny objects as they're coming up. I'll just become basically like a person on Twitter. All I'm doing is just sharing other people's news with no particular focus at all. I'm just being everything to everyone and not really being a master of any one particular topic. So that makes sort of sense, I think, that you would say, okay, I really need to focus in on something that's not what I'm doing right now. So what are your focus areas? Think about that. Think about the things that you talk about, whether it's things to help people with helping celebrate things, whether you're trying to help with people's maybe their health and well-being, or it could be that you're trying to help them with mental health problems, or you're trying to grow their business. Whatever it is you do, what is it specifically that you talk about, that you have some sort of area of passion about, because you wouldn't have gone into this business, certainly wouldn't have gone in this business if it wasn't for you having some kind of passion about it. A lot of people, do get into business because they see an easy way to make money. My friend John Huey in Brisbane, he got into hiring out rental trucks, not because he has particularly passionate about rental trucks, but he saw a hole in the market and he saw an ability to sort of carve out a niche for himself that will make a lot of money. And so far, it's working really well for him. He's certainly doing very well at it. But his passion areas, well, they weren't covered by this particular business. But what he's been able to do is bring his passion into hiring out trucks for people moving houses on weekends. In your case, you're probably working in something that you feel really strongly about, that you've got strong opinions about, that you may even have, a different opinion about or a different approach to what the mainstream might have. In that case, there's something in there that you can talk about. You might talk about the particular modality that you work with to help people, or you might talk about the way that you do consultations, or it might even be that you're talking about the mechanics of or the technical capability of a particular product or service that you're delivering. So if you can narrow down your focus areas, even to just 2 things, 3 would be at the absolute most, but they have to be strongly related to each other. Like we said before, you don't have credibility in any of those spaces unless they're really tightly related and they have some kind of, like someone who's a digital marketer, for instance, they may have some credibility in saying that they're able to be an expert on Facebook, an expert on LinkedIn, and an expert on newsletters, because those are the things that are very tightly, you can bundle those together into a cluster of digital marketing as a skill set. But for instance, if you're working as an IT support person and you really want to be an expert and seem to be someone who's giving people tips on how to get the best out of their computers, and then the next week you're talking all about ChatGPT, there's not really any close relationship to that. It's not an easy one to draw the comparisons or the parallels with. So getting down that focus here, I'm not saying niching yourself. Like, I actually don't think niching is actually a very good idea for a small business in the early days. I think what it is that you niche down in what you talk about, what your area of expertise is. As long as it's it's something you can make money out of, it's something that you're passionate about, it's something that that the world needs, then you've got something you can focus in on. So we've got the focus thing. So what I'm going to do is pop over to a spreadsheet now. So I'm working in a Google Sheet over here that I'm building. It's all about, let's just see, it's like a content plan. Now, hopefully you can read this nice and clearly. I'll make it nice and big so you can see what I'm writing. So let's just say we're starting at Monday, February 13, because I just haven't updated this spreadsheet to be later in the month. What we're going to do is what our topics are going to be. So what I might do is take this from the example of someone who has a tourism experience. They're running in their town. Let's just say they're in, let's pick a town anywhere, Bundaberg in Queensland. So if you're in Bundy in Queensland, you would go, okay, I work in tourism. What are the 2 things I could talk about? So probably the number 1 topic it is what to do in Bundy. So that'd be topic number 1. Now, we're not going to post 7 days a week in this one. We're going to post in a pattern of 3 posts per week. So I'm going to start off on week 1, talking about what to do in Bundy on Monday. It does rhyme really badly. Sorry about that. The second topic we're going to talk about is living in Bundy. Let's just say Bundaberg, because I can't say that Bundy all the time and do that with a straight face. So let's just say the second topic area is living in Bundaberg. So they're an advocate for their local area, both in tourism and as a place to live. So a lot of places in Australia need more people. And I know Bundaberg is one of those places. I'm in Darwin. We probably need another 20,000 people, to be honest, because there's so much work and no one to do it here. So what I'm going to now do is split that up. So my topics are going to be every couple of days. I'm going to post no more than maybe 3 times a week. So the living in Bundaberg, I'm now going to bring to, let's just say we'll start on a Tuesday. I'm going to grab this one. I'm going to put this one on a Thursday. And then back to living in Bundaberg on the Saturday. So you see how I'm spreading this around. It's not going to sit at the same thing that lands on the same day every week. It's going to be a little bit different every week. So sorry, I just didn't split that up right. This one goes there. That's better. And now I'll take that again and split it up. So what to do in Bundaberg and living in Bundaberg, starting off on Monday again. And then, so this same pattern is going to follow every 2 weeks. So you're not going to get the same topic on the same day 2 weeks in a row. It can be split up nice and evenly. Let's take this one again, copy it into here. And I'm going to do this over and over again. So let's even pull that down so I can just copy it use what spreadsheets are good at, down this way. And I'm going to follow this through for about 13 weeks. So there's a reason why I split this into 13 weeks. It's because that's a quarter of a year. And if you're posting something that's evergreen and it's nice and repeatable, and doesn't require any sort of reference to a season, then you can repeat that 13 weeks again later in the year for another 13 weeks, and then another, and then another for a year, if you like. That's generally what I do with a lot of my clients. We produce 13 weeks of evergreen material to keep them tiding over with lots of good information coming through. It's a compelling, well-written post that makes sense. But the reality is, we know on social media, no one's following you so closely that they see every single post you make. So it's still giving you stuff that's going to fill the gap, but it leaves you another 4, 5, in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4 days a week in which you can post whatever you like. You can post things that come up that are new, things that are stunning, your reels, your TikToks, all those things are a lot more, on the moment and of the moment, can go in those other days. But if you're having a bad week, and we all have them, or just a really super busy week, then you don't have to worry about not having anything there, because you've still got your 3 posts a week coming in that adequately explain who you are, what you do, and who it's for. That's the first part. We're looking at just the topic. Let's go back to our presentation and move on from there. So we've got the topic. What is next? Next is looking at the styles of writing we're going to use that are going to help you to keep your content fresh. So the styles of writing are in 5 different things. Now you think, if I'm only talking about 1 or 2 things, won't my content become repetitive? It doesn't have to when you've got quite a range of different styles of writing. And you've got those 2 different topics coming up at different times every fortnight. So let's see what they are. The 5 styles of content I've got down as teach, observe, different, list, and how. This is going to make sense in a second as we go through what they are. So let's look at this. So I believe it's telling us our local footy club does a Wellbeing Wednesday with mental and physical health ideas and feel-good quotes every week. I'd love to do the same, but I keep being told I shouldn't do the same post every week. I think what you do is you basically do what works. So you try it. Is it working? Is the footy club actually getting any sort of reach out of that? Because they're probably doing it because it's easy, not because they've actually got data that says that it's a good idea. So you can probably go, well, what is it that you can do that actually reaches through and actually gets some kind of engagement from people? If it doesn't, well, then it's probably not a good idea. But if it does, heck, I'd do it. So you could even make your Wellbeing Wednesday as one of those extra posts that you want to do. Test things out. If they work, great, do them again. If they don't work, yeah, they're probably not going to work. Maybe give it 1 or 2 tests, but really, if it's not going to get any sort of reach or any sort of engagement, then it may not be worth doing it. So those 5 styles of content we're going to break down. So in the teach one, and the reason why we do this too, and I want to give you a bit of background on this, is that it keeps you focused on those 2 topics, but it gives you variety in those 2 topics. And it also gives you a chance to do some great storytelling. And storytelling is a subject for another webinar, I'm sure. But when it comes to storytelling, that's the ability to be able to draw people in with something that's more than just an offer, or more than just a fact, or an inspirational quote, or a Wellbeing Wednesday tip. It's where you actually be able to reach into someone's heart and actually get them to emotionally respond to what you're saying. And that goes way beyond just simply presenting facts and figures and pricing and lists of features and benefits. It's where you get personal, you get vulnerable, if that's your thing. You don't have to. You can be, as separated and faceless from your business as you want to be. But I tell you what, when I post a regular post about something that I'm trying to teach someone, I'll get practically nothing out of it. Maybe a couple of 100 views of that post, but not really a lot of engagement. The second that I add some kind of personal experience or story or context to it, or a context that sits in where the most of my people happen to be, bang, that teaching post goes through the roof. And you're looking at 5,000, 6,000 people reached on those between the various platforms. So it's a very big difference when you add that storytelling factor. This all comes from a guy called Justin Welsh. He's probably my guru, my coach that doesn't even know he's my coach. I follow everything he says, everything he does. I've bought both of his online coaching things, and I've learnt it backwards. And this is not my idea. This is my varied idea based upon his idea of those 5 different things. He's actually gone out to 6 different things now, but I want to keep it nice and simple for you. So we stick to 5. So you can follow him along at Justin Welsh on LinkedIn is where he's most active, as well as Twitter. There's two platforms he's most active on. Does a little bit of stuff on Instagram as well, but it's really just screenshotting his posts on Twitter and just putting them as graphics on Twitter. So what can I teach is the first question we ask. And that can be a tip or a trick, something about what you know lots about. So you're sharing some of your expertise in a nice, tight, short format on socials, but also maybe on a longer blog that's on your website as well. It could be on an article on Medium, an article on LinkedIn, just in some sort of longer format as well. What I like to do is make sure I've got something which is like a short tip that starts the process on social media and then goes out to a longer format, more in-depth article somewhere else, or even a YouTube video somewhere else. I think that we call that a hub and spoke model. And I've got my hub and spoke model, which says, every second post I do is accompanied by something else somewhere else that you can get more knowledge or deeper knowledge on what I've talked about in social media. So let's say, for instance, I'm talking about how to add more of a human touch to your social media. And so I'll say, here's 3 things you can easily do to add human touch. Point 1, point 2, point 3. Makes for a great little social post. But I say, if you want to learn more about this, I've written about it here. And I can link off to my blog. Or want to learn more about this? I talked about this in my podcast. Here's the link. Or I talked about this on this YouTube video. Here's the link off to that as well. So that's when you're creating lots and lots of content. I'm a crazy man because I don't sleep much and I do too much stuff. So don't follow my example. But of course, scale it to what you're capable of doing. Remember, this is my job. I do this every day. So it's a whole different level for me to do. So what I'm telling you here today is scale back a bit to help you to be able to realistically do it. So the teaching stuff can be an essential piece of knowledge that you know from your kind of business and your where you work. It could be a piece of important news that's in your industry. For instance, the update the other day from Facebook allowing for subscriptions for people to get enhanced support and enhanced features and a verified tick on their profile. That might be something that people are interested in my world. In your world, it could be something completely different. I also think this is a great place for you to teach something that's uncommon that people wouldn't even think about when it comes to what you do. And it could be your particular method of doing something, your particular magic formula, your particular product that does something that people don't expect that a product like yours would be able to do. That's where you can teach people a bit of knowledge. Knowledge ultimately, like knowledge and solutions and how to are the best forms of this. But then you can also go down the path of, it could be a bit of knowledge about your product or a bit of extra knowledge about your service or your industry as well. So that's the first question you ask. What can I teach? The second one is, what have I observed or what have I noticed? And this is where you take a little slice of your life and you say, something that happened on the way to work the other day was this, this, and this. And that could be something then you tie into a life lesson. Now, saying something like, I was driving past the park the other day and looking at the trees, and that made me think about, the growth of businesses and how it sometimes takes time. Now, that's a little tacky. That's a little bit of a stretch. But something that's very real that people can relate to, that's in their lives as well as in your life. So it could be, I was dropping the kids off at school the other day and blah. And it was talking about, the disorganization of the taxi, of the drop-off zone, the kiss and ride zone, or it could be, that it's particularly well organized. And that's something you wanted to draw attention to because it says, when systems are in place, then people seem to operate better. So you're talking about something you've observed that ties back into what you do. So in my case, it could be, I was watching, I actually work across the road from a school that has a mad pick up and drop off time, but it's actually really well executed. The parents really comply with it. The staff that look after it, they do so well. I've never seen a problem across the road. It's like this well-oiled machine. It just moves through, people drop off, people pick up, they move on. There's no loitering, there's no hanging around. It just works. So I could talk about that as being similar to the way that a system works when it comes to the traffic in and traffic out of handling messages from your clients. That's something I could draw a parallel with. It makes sense. It could be a thing that made you think. So you were sitting down in the cafe the other day and hearing a conversation that people are having about the economy and how they reckon it's going to tank and how much extra they're paying. It made you think of how we often are just talking ourselves into bad times. That's the thing that you observe. The whole idea is pulling something out, a life lesson or a business lesson or a lesson that's in the realm that you work in that comes from an observation you've made in your real life. Now, when you try to make it up, when you try to pretend that this thing happened, like, you know, like those posts that begin with, people often ask me, blah, 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 blah. And all I think of when I first see those is, no one's asking that, mate. No one's asking that at all. Don't start it like that. Start it more naturally. Put it in. I was in Woolworths in the Indian food aisle the other day and noticed that that they have a particular range of these things. And I thought, this did not exist when I was young. We simply did not have these products in our supermarkets, and it tells me how much purchasing and consumer behaviour has changed in the last 30 years. That is a good topic to talk about if it's related to what you do. If you're talking about consumer patterns, retail, those kind of things. So this one's about a slice of your real life, something you've observed. The next one is a little bit different. How do I think differently about this? And this is where you get to be a little bit, I don't know, maybe a little bit controversial. It's talking about common misconceptions, such things as like, the conventional wisdom is to take lots of vitamin C when you get sick. But the reality is, by the time you're sick, vitamin C won't do a thing. It's a preventative. And by the way, no one's getting scurvy these days in Australia. So, we're probably already getting more than enough vitamin C. What you might want to do is focus instead on this when it comes to your health. So what you're doing is saying, there's a common misconception I would like to clear up. Or it could be your own special formula. You can say, most people think that in order to succeed, they have to just knuckle down and work hard until something catches and they make it. But we know that you'll never get rich by doing a 9-to-5 job. And so that's where you have whatever your financial formula is, or whatever your life formula, or your fitness formula, your well-being formula, or your getting things done formula. It's also room for a contrary opinion. So if everyone else is saying do this, if everyone else is saying think this, and you're saying, no, we're going to do and think that, then you've got a contrarian opinion. Now, be aware that when you start to put opinions on the internet, people are going to come back and they're going to disagree with you in some places. That's okay. The courage to actually express an opinion doesn't really get negated by the fact that someone with a loud voice decides to shout you down. We've got the block button for that very reason. We can block people. We can, you can argue with them if you really want to. Well, I would advise not to. I'd say thank you for your opinion. I find that valuable. And then you move on. People, when you don't react in a bad way, they tend to back off. Or you can call out bad behavior. If you want to be one of those people that says, this is happening in my town and I think it's terrible and something needs to be done about it, here's my idea. So it's like, this is something to be careful with. You don't be aggressive. You don't necessarily want to be, always controversial just for the sake of being controversial, because what happens is you become unapproachable. I've worked with quite a few people who love expressing their opinions about this, that, and the other. What they failed to understand at the time is their business wasn't growing and it wasn't stable simply because they were so controversial so much of the time. They started not talking about anything to do with their business. They started not becoming an expert in anything except how to have an argument. So these are things you need to approach with care. I would say, look at those common misconceptions and look at what it is that you do that may run contrary to what the crowd seems to do. You're not trying to put down the crowd. You're not trying to put down conventional wisdom. You're not trying to put down, the general way of doing things, the popular trend. What you're doing is just saying, hey, think about this. This is a different way of thinking about this. Let's have a look at this way instead of just following that way. Next one is, how can I deliver this as a list of tips or tools? This is where those great lists come out. 3 ways to increase your wealth. 10 little things you can do to make sure your health is better in 2023 than what it was in 2022. Those little things about like clickbait, right? The thing is, though, you're not constantly producing clickbait because it only works for a couple of times. In what you're doing here, the credibility you're building from all the other stuff you're producing, it's feeding into make your list, your clickbait, credible, worth reading. You're not just randomly putting up ideas to try and just be sensationalistic. What you're doing here is actually backing up all that credibility you've already built with some actionable things that people can do. This is great stuff. You can have a dot point process that shows people how to do something. You can list ideas. Like, for instance, one of my biggest posts ever was when I listed 21 different ideas for posts when you can't think of what to post. It went really well, and people responded so well to that. I thought, you know what? That's something I'm going to do more often. People really love that. Then a list of tools or tips. So a list of tools or tips will be in the form of, here's 3 tools that help me to get my work done, or here's three simple things you could do to change your life that will give you a better outcome for 2023. So they're really simple to write, and people love this stuff. They really love to get immersed in quick, short, simple, and easy to implement lists. And we look at those, particularly short lists, if 3 up to 10 or less. People tend to feel comfortable with that. 7 ways to, 3 things that. Those sort of little tips and lists make it really easy for people to be able to follow through and apply it to their lives. And the fourth one, I've just got that bubble wrong, but the fourth one is it says how. How did this outcome happen? These are one of my favorite things. This is where storytelling comes in. It's where you start with the end in mind. You start with saying, this happened. Here's why it happened. So it's you can talk about success. You can talk about a failure. You can talk about challenge. You can talk about a client. You can talk about something you were able to achieve. But you start with the end. So you say, we increased our sales by 25% this month. Here's how we did it. And then you're explaining in very short points, very often dot points, here's the process we went through to get there. If you tie that to, for instance, a client outcome, we helped our client to reduce their work time by 3 hours a week. Here's how we got them there. That sort of stuff is really quite powerful, because not only does it show that you did well in something or that you've had deep thinking about it, but it shows a process. It's a process that people might go, I could try that too. And when they try it and they fail, because there's always the magical you factor in there that helped make that success happen, then who do you think the first person they're going to go to, and they go, oh, I can't really do this on my own. I need help. Who will I go to? They'll come back to the person who gave them the idea in the first place. So this kind of content is one of my favorites. It's where I come into to be able to. It's where I get value from seeing how other people think and how they do things. And I go, that's a great idea. I can apply that somehow in my life. So Belinda's asking right now, where would asking questions come in? For instance, how do you use glitter? I think you go further than that. I think you like focusing on the product is going to be, you're going to run out of content real quick, because glitter is glitter is glitter. It's got lots of features and benefits about it, but what is it that it helps you do? So you went, okay, this week we supplied we supplied glitter to this many companies. How do we get there? Or it could be we've got biodegradable glitter that doesn't screw up the environment. How do we get to this point? Or it could be your thought processes of why would we start and this is where storytelling comes in. Why would I want to start a business that's all about selling glitter? Well, let me tell you why. And it shows the process of how you got to the point where you're selling glitter. So there's lots of different things you can put in there. And we're going to have a look at that in just a second, in fact, because we're going to go to our spreadsheet again. So in our spreadsheet, I'm going to use I was going to use the glitter example. We've kind of already begun what to do in Bundaberg. So I'll try and do something around the style of the sort of questions we might ask. For the style are going to be broken down those 4. So I'm going to start off first with teach, go next to observe, then list. Then we're going to go, it's not list, it's different. Then list. You start to see how you're getting a big variety of content now. So you don't need to necessarily have those questions, lots of them. Because remember, we're doing 13 weeks here. And so this process is not going to come around to, the Monday, February 13th pattern repeating again very soon. It's going to take a long time to come back to that same question, that same style. So if we go, okay, the next one is list. We go to how, and then we repeat the process. Teach, observe, different. I'm not going to do all this list because it's going to take me too long to type them all in. And then how, and teach, observe, different list. We can type how. So I've gone down to week 5 there. So even though we've got what to do in Bundaberg and teach as a combination. Well, let's see. Doesn't come back here. Doesn't come down here. There you go. It's not until Thursday, March 9. So it's actually a few weeks until we get back to the same combination of the topic and the style of topic we're going to work with. Let me just freeze this so that when I do that, it keeps the top row so you can see what we're talking about. So then you can sort of play around with the type, which could be, well, this is a blog. This is going to be a TikTok. This is going to be or you can just say social post rather than TikTok because they're going to be across multiple things. This might be a podcast episode. So I told this, like, where is these things going to go that's a bigger thing? So that might be my mini course in there. There's a course that people can do to learn more about living in Bundaberg. There's a podcast episode, a YouTube video. So this is what I generally call on my one, the hub content. So it always points from somewhere to somewhere else. So I've got a post, and then it points to a blog. A post points to a mini course. A post points to a podcast. Now, you don't have to have that for everything. I could say, you know what, I don't have a mini course. I'm not going to point to anything that day. I'm not going to point to anything that day, but I might point to something in the next one, which might be my YouTube video if I've got one. If you only have a blog, that's fine too. Just make them all blogs that they point to. You don't have to have everything. Just do what you what you can reasonably manage. Remember, we're talking about a realistic approach to this, not sort of putting yourself in a great big hole of content creation that you never can crawl back out of. So we've got our topic. We've now got the styles of writing. I've just touched on, what your expertise stuff could be. So we're talking about the blogs there. What else can we look at? Well, that's when we go back to the presentation. We start to talk about the next stage of this. And the next stage is all about staying on brand visually. Now, I'm going to do a little bit. I've only got my own example in here, so please excuse me if I get a little bit self-absorbed on this. I recently went through a process where I worked on my personal brand. I figured that was a way for me to differentiate myself without having to pay thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars realistically in advertising every year. I used to advertise on television. I used to advertise on Facebook and Google, but I thought, 2022 was a year that I did not want to pay for ads. So what I did is got what I call my colors done. So I talked to someone who's very good at picking this sort of stuff. And they said, and we went shopping together. So it's a friend of mine. Thankfully, I didn't have to pay for it. But in the end, seriously, I should pay him for this because he was brilliant. So we went into shops and he showed me how we could pick my colors. And at the end of the day, what we picked is that pink, purple, and navy blue are my colors. They're the colors that you notice if you look at the little window of me, it's matching the colors of my shirt. I've got a navy blue background just over here on the wall, not by purpose, it just happens to be there. But that's the colors I'm now living through. So what it does is that the colors I have of my photo shoots, the colors I have of my brand stuff I had taken, matches that. Navy blue shirt with a kind of a purpley pink overlay on it. Purple on my website with a purple light. In here, pink shirt with a purple light coming from the left, which sort of makes it sort of that purpley blue effect on my skin as well, making sure that we have those colors carrying through everything. Now that's in personal brand. That could then carry across to your products. Now with glitter, probably not a great example of glitter because you want the colors of the glitter to shine through, but that could then be part of your palette. The multicolor rainbow of silvers and golds and colors could be part of your color set. I just settle on those because apparently those are the colors that look best on me. Particularly pink, apparently, looks really awesome on me. So I'm like, yep, cool, I'll go with it. I've got no masculinity insecurities with wearing pink at all. In fact, every time I wear pink, people compliment me on how I'm looking. So I'm like, yeah, I'll work with that. It also then comes into some kind of way you're going to present yourself, particularly on social media, I think, but then in graphics for your blogs as well could be useful. I've got one font that I use across those things. And the font that I use is called Zing Rust. And it's on Canva. It's a Canva font. So I use that and then I spread the words apart. So it's quite wide between each letter. It's not a set width, but it's definitely wide between the letters, making it really simple to read because for people with dyslexia, reading all capitals can be a bit of a nightmare. And so to make that a little easier, I spread things out. So it's not quite as hard to read. So you can see I'm wearing my navy blue. I'm wearing my I'm wearing my purple over here, and this is a shot of where I'm going next week on holidays. It's a place called Clove Tree Hill in Bali, and it's an absolutely gorgeous place with gorgeous views, and it's going to be so relaxing. I cannot wait. Honestly, it's going to be one of the best parts of my year. But I was talking about how when I'm there, I'm going to be on that very same balcony, going to be doing a SWOT analysis on my life to look at what the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are when it comes to me, my business, and my life, including things like health and well-being. So I was talking about that by bringing across that one brand element, which is that font and the way it's used, into a photo of that particular resort I'm staying at. So that's a very simple way of drawing together. Now, you notice I do not have a single thing on there that in the form of a logo. Now, I've got a logo for myself. I'm just not putting it on there because they can see my logo in my social stuff. They'll see my logo just above the post. They'll see the logo when they go to my website. They don't need to see my logo on every post I do because that's not what's going to draw everything together and make it something which is obviously me. It'll either be photos of myself or the way that I present things out, so that when it comes up in the feed for the people who do follow me, it's going to be really simple for them to go, oh, that's him. That's his stuff. I'm going to read that because it's his and I follow him, rather than something that's like all over the place with too many colors, too many variations, too much variety in an attempt for us to somehow, force ourselves forward in the feed that people will notice us because of all the bright difference and the randomness. That's not what people are very risk averse. People are very much looking for patterns. It's wired into our humanity. If your brand is a product, so if my brand is a product, can I still not put in a logo? Belinda, you can do whatever you like, honestly. As I said before, do what works. There's no one single way to do this. I'm just giving you the formula that sort of has worked for me. So if you want to have a logo, please do it. Or don't. But I don't think logos on graphics in Canva on a social media post does anything. I don't think it draws any extra attention. I don't think people are not buying your logo. They're buying your product. So bring your product forward, absolutely. But don't necessarily, feel like people need to see your logo all the time. Because honestly, no one's logo is that good that people are lining up to see your logo. You could change your logo and no one would notice. Honestly, they wouldn't, because what a logo does is makes a post look like an ad. And that's the last thing you want to do. You don't want to make your post look like an ad. You want your post to stand out? Yeah, sure. But do you want your post to automatically be ignored because people automatically just ignore ads these days? Probably not. So I'm kind of like in that de-brand things. Get rid of all the brand elements and just bring across the elements of your brand that make sense and carry some kind of consistency. And I don't think a logo is the primary thing you do that with. It's your colors, it's your palette, it's your style and font, the style of photography that you use, rather than a logo, because your logo is already present. It's already on, think about it. Think about when you see an ad for a conference and half of the graphic is just sponsor logos. Is that enhancing that ad? No, it's ticking a box and telling the sponsors, yeah, we told you in our proposal that we were going to put your logo on all that stuff. It makes it hard to read. It means there's too much information going on in there. So you try to make sure that any sort of graphic that you put online doesn't have more than 3 things in it. So in my case, I've got 2. I've got text, image. That's it. And the text I try not to make too over the top and too filling too much of the space, because the image is designed to be able to draw people in and get the attention. The text is just like a caption. It's just I do it to add like a little bit of humor to what I'm doing. I'm not saying that, the SWOT analysis thing, I'm not talking about a product or a service. I'm just talking about something I'm going to be up to. Over on the right, the big cuddly dork thing was a way of saying, well, this is the way that I was actually selling my personal brand services. But the big cuddly dork thing got the attention so that someone's willing to read a bit more about what I was saying about personal branding services. So yeah, definitely, Belinda, it's like try everything and see what works and keep doing the thing that works. I've just found that this tends to be some of the ways, even with products, that we kind of get a little bit caught up in trying to over brand things when we can a brand is simply a photo with a bit of text. It doesn't have to be a logo. I think a logo is the laziest way to do it. And then it's also the way you talk about things, the tone and the voice that you use. So are you talking professional? Are you casual? Are you fun? Or are you uptight? Are you bright or dark? On these lines myself, I've sort of plotted my stars on the lines where I think I sit. So professional, casual, definitely in the casual end. Bright and dark. My photos tend to be a lot more dark than bright. Simple or complex. I tend to sort of go to the simple to try and make things really easy for people to be able to follow up and take action on. But yeah, in that case, it's going to be something which you work with what's going to work for you. You don't necessarily have to follow anyone's particular framework. You just go, well, I'm going to try being professional for a couple of weeks. If it doesn't work, great. Try being casual. If you've got barely any followers and no one's really like working with you, well, then you can sort of flip things around as much as you like into what might work for you. So as we move off that, let's go back now onto our spreadsheet and let's see what when we add to that. So we've got the type, the post content, we've got the style, we've got the type we're going into. We can even put now in another column, let's say one column to the left, and call this brand. So you might have a brand thing which you're going dark image. The next one could be quote in our font. This is where you're starting to break it down into the kind of things you're going to add into that image or into that. The good question, Belinda, actually, you just put up, is the overall look of your feed in Facebook and Instagram important? Should the grid have a flow to it? No one's looking at your grid. Just no one is. You're looking at your grid. You may look at other people's grids to see what they're up to, but nobody, as who is a consumer on Instagram, goes and looks at a grid. So all that sort of stuff where people are trying to draw patterns and trying to lay out, very clever bits of photos that only make sense when they're together in the grid. No one's doing that. It was a gimmick that got invented about 5 years ago that didn't work for anyone then, and it doesn't work for anyone now. So I don't think that necessarily needs to be there. Because nobody's really seeing the pattern of what you're doing. They're not seeing your stuff en masse. They're seeing one post at one time in their feed, if that. So what you need to make is sure is that post does what you need that post to do, not as part of some graphical representation over 6 to 9 posts that show on a grid, because no one's looking at that. Like, it's just, if only that Facebook and Instagram actually show us the stats of that. I think on Facebook, in the insights, you do see what they call page views. But then that's not just your people who viewed your page, it's people who viewed stuff that's on your page. So for instance, your posts. But if you could actually see the looks, and I've heard this from the guys, there's a couple of staff in Sydney that work on Instagram as product managers themselves, and they say this as well. They said it was just like this trend that someone picked up, and because the whole boho chic thing was going very strong at the time, it was this patterns that these people who did boho chic kind of styles sort of picked up on. Then everyone, oh, that looks so pretty on the grid, let's do that, without anyone actually realizing whether it worked or not. And by and large, it does not work at all. It's just a really bad idea. So thanks for bringing that up. I really appreciate that. So we could do this, this could be dark image, a quote in our font. This one could be a video with font overlay. This is where you're going to take parts of your brand. You might do in this one, have logo with photo. And so what you're doing is saying, just how am I going to link this thing back to who I am? Now, as we're building these columns across here, there's a very important reason why we're doing this, and that's going to become very obvious in a second when we talk about how you chunk all this down in terms of the work you're going to do. So next one, let's get back onto our presentation. Next one, what are your values? Now, this is one of the first things we do when you're forming a personal brand. We're not talking about personal brand today. We're talking about how to be able to do this stuff in a way that's achievable and systematic. That's my values. So honesty, vulnerability, and approachability, they're very important things to me. When someone says I was unapproachable, they don't feel like I'm being honest, that cuts me, because it's really super important to me, because they're the things which, I think I live those things out. I really do. And I don't ever want people to feel like they can't approach me, or they don't feel like I'm being honest with them, because honestly, those things just, they're so important to me as a business owner and as a human. But your values will be different. Your values could be everything from fun. It could be a value of integrity, of openness. It could be a value of empowering women. It could be a value of growing businesses. It could be a value of healing the world. Whatever your value is, they're all completely valid. But how do you then write them into what you're doing? And that writing it into what you're doing then means that you have to keep it really simple. And I reckon don't have any more than three. I learned this one from a guy called Sean Sewell, who's a speaker and a business coach who does a lot of work with different people around Australia in what he's calling his I think he called it the Silver Circle or something. It's what's called his circle of these clients that he works with in a sort of a mastermind environment. And a couple of very successful local businesses near me are part of that and speak very highly of him. When I heard him speak about this with forming your values and having no more than three, it's something which you say, as I'm posting this, which one of my values or which combination of my values am I bringing to this post? So that I make sure, now this is a big important thing in your brand, whatever your values are need to be expressed in that post. So that's why I do a lot of things that are self-effacing and take a bit of the piss out of myself, is because one of my values is vulnerability and the other one is honesty. So I'm being honest about my failures, vulnerable about the things I've had to face and challenges, but also approachable enough so that people can talk to me about those things without fear of me sort of going, oh, I don't want to talk about that. That's hard stuff. So if you don't have any more than three of those values, and let's go back to our grid again, our values then, we might want to go, well, in my case, I want to be honest and approachable. And I want to be in here vulnerable. It's a story that I'm talking about that's in my life. This one might be honest again. I might go down to this one with the logo on the photo, and I just want it to be approachable because I'm wanting the people to feel free to approach me to ask questions about what I've posted about living in Bundaberg, for example. And as we continue down, we'll continue to find those combinations. Now, again, I won't go all the way down because we'll run out of time. This is a big topic, but the idea is you've now got all this stuff laid out. You've got now what your topic is that you're going to write about, the style of writing you're going to do, whether it's going to point to somewhere else apart from just your social media, the kind of brand element you're going to bring forward to make it seem like it's nice and consistent, and then the values you're going to come through with that makes it very you, very authentically you, and like what your business is. Only then do you have to write the content. So what I did, and I'm going to go to my one in here, back over the Christmas break, is I spent a day or two sorting all this stuff out for myself. So this is my matrix, my own one. So I've got the date there, what I'm writing about. You see I've only got two different topics I write about, what the values are that I want to bring into it, what the style is I'm going to write in. I break mine down as well with a newsletter and a personal observation, the content it's going to point back to. So there's a client highlight that I wrote about there, a blog entry, a newsletter that goes out every week, and my blog here as well. That could easily be my YouTube, my podcast as well. And then what the post is actually about. And we'll see as I go down here, what the post is about is written out by and large for almost the entire year. I went and did this a little bit on ChatGPT, which is one of my great tools for doing this with, to get ideas on that. And using the ideas, so this is ChatGPT over here. If you haven't seen this before, there's plenty of other webinars you can watch online on YouTube that teach you about this. But I wanted to say generate 13 ideas or posts about the topic of personal branding. So I'm not telling it to write the post, I'm asking for ideas, and here it goes. So it's going to give me those ideas, 13 different ideas for posts about personal branding. So I've taken those, put them in here of what I'm posting about that day. And when I get to that day and I don't know what to write about, I don't have to worry because I already have been told here that I'm writing about personal brand in a way that's vulnerable and authentic, that is of a personal nature, and this is what I'm going to be writing about. So I don't have to come up with the ideas. I just have to write what the idea is that was already set. And this is where this particular method saves you a ton of time because you've done all this up front. It'll take you probably a couple of hours really to generate all this stuff in a pattern. But I know that like on Friday, January 13, I was talking about social media in an authentic and vulnerable way using a list of tips or tools that I actually highlighted a client called Jeanette and listed how I'd failed her and how I turned that around to deliver well for her. So that was already written. All I need to do is then on the day, get up nice and early and write my post. I'm going to, oh yeah, that's what I'm writing about. Bang, bang it out. Then on Monday, again, personal brand in a vulnerable but effective way. And then the type was a why. So I was starting with a question. It was how to create a consistent personal brand image. So I started the story by saying, I was able to achieve this through my posts on Facebook this week. And here's how we made that happen. And it's all about, I got the photos done with a local photographer who helped me to pick out my colors and be able to help me to present myself in the best possible way. Then we worked on how to make that in Canva so it actually looks nice and consistent, but not boring and dull. So that's, yeah, and this is where we come to this, and Cullen, you're very, very good at this. How do you batch the writing of your content, or just do it every day after you prepared the spreadsheet? I vary it around. So what I like to do on a weekend, I might try and write ahead. But my problem is, though, I'm a shiny object guy. So my problem is that I then, when I go to chunk things down, as we're seeing in this next slide, is that I can do a week's worth of writing in just a couple of hours on a Sunday if I feel like it. But lately I've been going, I want to be a little bit more spontaneous and real on how I'm feeling that day, still within the confines of what my pattern is that I want to write in. But I feel like I don't write my best when I try to do it all in 2 hours on a Sunday. I write my best when I'm actually doing it over, a period of time. So what I try to do is do one part at a time. And your question is spot on, Cullen. Thank you very much. The one part at a time is that I will do just all the planning on one time. Then I will do what I'm going to write about, or at least get it into some dot points about what I want to write about. I use ChatGPT as my shortcut to be able to then get the topics in there. And finally, then I spread out when I'm going to do this. So I'll get to that week, and I generally plan ahead in the week. I go, I'll just review. I say, yeah, I'm writing about this week. I'm comfortable with doing that on the day. That's what I did this week. I was comfortable with doing it on the day. But if I know that next week I'm away in Bali, so guess what I'm going to do? Tonight, what I'm doing before I fly out tomorrow morning is I'm writing the whole week's worth in advance, because I don't want to have to be worrying about my social media while I'm on holidays. I want it to sort of work for me, not have me working for it while I'm on a break. So spin it around a bit. For me, I like the spontaneity. I think I write better posts, and my metrics say that I do when I do it on the day. But there's some weeks where that's not possible. So I've got to make sure I've got that flexibility to do once, do it all in advance, or the next time I won't do it in advance at all. So as you see in our spreadsheet, that I've set it up deliberately now, so I do not have to go and tick that one off. I don't have to think of everything on that day. I just get to Tuesday, January 31. I know it's about social media. I know it's about being effective and honest. I know it's a list. And then I know what the topic is, the role of influencer marketing in social media. Great. I can write that. I don't have to think about what I'm doing. I just go, that's what I'm writing about today. Or if something else comes up that's also about social media that's going to be effective and honest, and it's in the form of a list, and it's come up to my head that morning, I go, I'm going to write about this instead. It's okay. I've got the flexibility to do that. But I'll tell you what, it's nice to have the fallback of knowing that I've got one of these planned for almost every day for the rest of the year. It makes it so much more relaxing that I know that if I'm not feeling creative at all, at least I know what I've got to write about, and I can just carry it out and just soldier on with it. So it does make a very, very big difference. Well, that brings us to the end, almost right on time. Now, for those of you who have been on the Digital Solutions program, this ends on March 31 in its current format. So it is coming back in a new format. We don't know who's carrying it out just yet or what it's going to be, but I can tell you one thing, that if you have used up all of your 3 one-to-one times on this current program, you will be able to then go again on the next program, which will offer you 4 one-to-one hours over the course of the program over 3 years. So it's a little bit more than what we had in the previous program. I don't know the details of who's carrying it out or what it's going to be, but I have no doubt you'll be hearing about it very, very soon. But if you still haven't used up your hours, please do so at this address, digitalsolutions.businessstation.com.au. That's a way for you to be able to get in touch with us, book your time with me or any one of our other advisors on the topic of your choice, and get some value for it. It's only $44. And if you ask me really nicely, I can probably get you on for free, but you'll need to approach me on LinkedIn so I can actually chat to you about how to do that. So thank you very much. You can reach out to me. As I said, on LinkedIn is probably the best place to get me because I tend to be there all the time. Twitter's good, Facebook's good, Insta's good, or at my email address. dante@businessstation.com.au. Thank you so much. Hopefully you got something out of that. Belinda, thank you for your questions through this. It really sharpens up, what I'm talking about and gives me great examples. Maria, thank you. Carlin, thank you. That great question at the end as well. For everyone else, have a fantastic weekend. I will be having a great time in Bali. So I'll see you in the next webinar. I think I'm doing one next week. No, week after next. So I'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. Have a great weekend.